Hello, and welcome to another week of BlackLantic. I am Hillary, and this is still Clinton.
Still Clinton.
You're still Clinton. I'm still Hillary.
Still Clinton.
And this week, we're very excited to finally be bringing you the Soundwave Summit live episode due at Taco on Augusta Street in Kensington. I want to make sure that I get all the names correctly, so we want to thank Amanda, Michael, and Shirley, who had us be part of the Soundwave Summit, who were very successful in having their day panels, learning about podcasting and a little bit about everything that this community is, and then bringing everyone together in the evening. I'll give a double thank you shout out to Shirley for running Black Canadian creators and really making sure that we were that Black representation and really putting us out there and on this stage. I also give a shout out to Justin, my personal videographer, but who also filmed this and edited the audio and put all of the episode together.
It was really incredible to be a part of all that, and from one grassroots organization to another. Thanks for the help involved in getting me down there. The Soundwave Summit, it was the inaugural one in Toronto, and what we learned that day was it was actually the first of its kind ever in Canada, where 4 different podcasters from diverse backgrounds filmed a half-hour episode on stage in front of a live audience. And it was a pretty great turnout, somewhere between 80 to 100 people, I think.
Our guest was Natalie Preddie, who is a travel columnist, journalist, blogger, writer, and who's also intercultural, mixed race, whatever language you would like to use. So it was really interesting getting her perspective of what traveling is like as a Black woman who presents lighter, who's also a mom. And so we talked about all of those things. So it was a tight 30 minutes. And I think we could have talked to her longer, so maybe we'll have her back. But it was great to have her come on. So thank you, Natalie, for being our guest.
So this is our 35th or 36th episode of 36. Season 3. I think it's pretty close to our 100th episode. I really got to do that solid count. And it is also the last episode of Season 3. It's been a crazy 9-10 months, I think. It's been amazing. We've interviewed so many different people when we look back. Let us know what your favorite one is. We are going to be taking X amount of weeks break for the summer. We'll be back no later than September. Not good, but I'm pretty sure we'll be back.
It was announced today that the talent lineup of Summer Salsa. So that might be our return to podcasting. It might not be that episode, but we will be back together doing that for sure in September. And of course, we'll be around doing things. If you have content you want us to share, post, tag, talk about our content, share news, share Black happenings.
I will still be posting regularly, more about local happenings. We've been so caught up with our works that's slowed down a little bit. But we'll try to post clips and highlights and reels from some of our episodes throughout the year. And as always, if you haven't already, we thank you. Please subscribe, comment, share. Sharing is probably one of the funnest things you can do for us.
Thanks to all the guests this year and venues and everyone who made Season 4 happen.
Sponsors, people who hired us, helped us out.
Yeah. Season 4 is looking like it's going to be the bomb.
Yeah, just like every season, for those who've been with us since day 1, we're gearing up for a bigger and better Season 4 every time. It's time to regroup and strategize and build.
First a nap. Let's get to the episode.
Peace.
Peace.
BlackLantic Media acknowledges that it carries out its work on the traditional unceded territory of the Wolastoqey, Mi'kmaq, and Pesquet-Makati peoples.
I would also like to acknowledge that I am seated on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people.
Are we all doing good?
Well, thank you, Sonar Network, everybody involved for having us here at the Soundwave Summit. We're very excited to have Natalie here for this conversation. This is our first live podcast, but we don't really edit our podcast, so we're going to pretend this is a monitor. This feels like we're just chilling at home, so this is perfect.
And we're so happy to be here. Ironically, this is my hometown, but I moved to New Brunswick 15 years ago, where, as our wonderful host brought up, there's a lot of racism out there. Whereas Hillary grew up in New Brunswick and now lives in Toronto. So we did a little switcheroo. We've been working together for about 3 years now, and we're really happy that you all came out to see us and everyone else interview the very interesting Natalie Preddie.
Yes, how are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. Thank you all for letting me talk. This never happens. I have 3 little kids and no one ever listens to me. So this is very exciting.
Yeah, we're really excited to have you. It's been really nice, being in Toronto and connecting with you in person. And the fact you were able to come out here has been so great. For those who don't know, but it was in the bio, you do travel content. You've been on TV and you're really out here doing the most, which is so exciting. You were just I feel like on a trip. And so that's why I was also happy you were able to come, because it was you've been on a train, you've been going places. And so I'm so curious to start off. What sparked your passion into going towards travel and going towards this industry of work? Because I don't think for many people it might be an obvious route when they're growing up.
No. So I had always been a traveler. Both of my parents, my mom's from England, my dad's from Jamaica. They both moved here to Toronto. So we spent a lot of time traveling back and forth to visit their families in their respective countries. And my mom's a traveler as well. So she's lived all over the world. I moved to England when I was 19. I went to school there, and from there I traveled and backpacked. And then one day I thought, how do I make this a job? So I tried to figure out what to do for a little while, and then I happened to get a trip to Kenya, actually, and for a magazine. And while I was gone, the magazine folded. And I thought, oh my goodness, I've had this phenomenal trip. What am I going to do? So I pitched it out. And next thing I know, I had 3 pages with the Toronto Star covering this safari. And it kind of snowballed from there.
Wow.
That is really incredible. So the magazine was not able to pay you, and you found this out in Kenya, and the heart palpitations. Wow.
And had also probably paid for everything up front and were waiting for the paycheck to reimburse.
Well, so Kenya had flown me out there.
Okay.
The Kenyan Tourism Board had flown me out there, and they were covering everything. So, as a potential client in the future as well, I'd had this phenomenal trip, and then to say, oh, by the way, I have no coverage, would have just been horrific.
Absolutely. I'm curious. I don't want to delineate too far from the script because I know time is of the essence, but I'm curious because I think a lot of people approach me now in our work and don't know how to do the pitch or how to find the network. So I'm curious what maybe set you on that path for success as well, to even say I enjoy this. How do I know who to reach out to and what the pitch even is to get you to a place where you could pivot to the Toronto Star?
Yeah. It's a lot about relationships. Did I turn it off?
Maybe.
Yes. Oh, no, we're back.
Okay, good.
I think it's a lot about relationships. I moved to Toronto in 2012 after living away for so long. So I just, I wrote for whoever I could write for. I said yes to everything. I spoke to everyone. And I followed up with an email, with something, and even going out for coffee with people, making sure they have that face-to-face recognition, and they have some sort of relationship to you. I think this business is very much based on relationships, and that is key. Following up again and again, you may be being a pest, but maybe someone forgot. I forget stuff constantly. If I don't reply to a text right away, it's going to take 3 to 4 months. But, maybe someone just forgot and they see it come up and they're like, oh, perfect. I saw that thing from Hillary and I totally forgot. She's just reached out to me now. So I think it's just being persistent and being what you feel might being a pain, but it's actually it's working, I promise.
Absolutely. So you said you used to say yes to everything. I'm going to assume that maybe you're more selective now in how you work. But also, so writing, TV interviews, news stations, quite a social media presence, and you used to do Instagram lives.
Yes.
How do you feel that media has changed over the years since you started being a travel influencer, and how has that changed the way you work?
So I wouldn't actually say I'm a travel influencer. I would say I'm a journalist before.
My apologies.
No, I just feel like it's very.
No, it's important.
It's different. I feel like travel influencers are a lot more visual than I am. I feel like my Instagram is very this is what I'm doing right now, and it's less aesthetically pleasing, perhaps. But in terms of journalism, what was the question again?
How has it changed?
How has
How
your
has it
work
changed?
changed and the way you approach documenting and doing what you do as technology has?
And
So
I would add as well, sorry, but just especially like where like we're moving away from traditional media as well, right? So you
100%.
can't necessarily pitch a story and be immediately on TV now that we're losing channels left, right, and center.
Yeah, so that is huge. We're seeing magazines fold left, right, and center, going online. Reach isn't as big as it used to be. We're seeing TV shows disappear. We're losing channels. So it has really changed. The industry is getting smaller. When it comes to freelance, people who were in newsrooms are now freelance. So I've just, the market is a lot more saturated with a lot less positions. In Canada as well, when it comes to travel writing, there are 4 Black travel writers. And I was telling you before, 2 are biracial. One is me. The other one lives in Vancouver, and people think we are the same person all the time, constant. So when it comes to telling those Black stories, over the last few years, post the pandemic and, the murder of George Floyd, we saw a lot more focus on Black stories. And that is just dissipating now. I feel like the people who said they were going to change everything and change the focus and make sure that there's a more diverse stories for a more diverse audience, I feel like they just haven't, they're not really doing what they said they were going to do. So that forces us to pivot as well.
Yeah. Once all the smoke settled and
Exactly.
the fear went away from what happened in
Exactly.
2020 and 2021, everyone walked away.
Yeah.
But as a biracial or intercultural person, as I like to say, how is traveling and content creating different for you compared to what you may have heard or seen or experienced from some of your non-racialized peers in the industry?
Or even like dark skinned person. I'd be very interested to
Yeah.
see what that's like, because I know that we've often talked about feeling unwelcome in both spaces and how
Yeah.
difficult that is to like an identity crisis. So what's that like when you're in
Oh
a
my
place that
gosh.
might hate dark skinned people but might like you for what you look like, the way that you present,
We just talked about that 5 minutes ago.
Yeah,
I recorded that for the podcast.
We started back there. So it's funny, in the travel space, I am mostly the only person of color. I would say 99% of the time I'm the only person of color. And I'm just used to it at this point. So I try to look at things differently. I try to find a personal connection in what I write. I know over the past 4 years, I'd say the focus of my work has become about cultural sustainability in Black communities around the world, or Indigenous communities around the world, and that's what I focus on when I write. That being said, I was on my first all Black press trip, which was amazing and has never happened before. It was so good, and it was, at times I did feel a little like, okay, maybe I don't belong here either. It was, there was a different vibe. There was still like, we're not exactly pumped about having white people around because, of the, everyone was American except for me. They weren't really fans of white people. Yeah. And so there was, someone said at one point, we were chatting and I said something about sitting next to a white girl. And he looked at me and he's like, "You don't identify as white, do you?" And I said, "No." We were joking around and suddenly it got really serious. And he goes, "You don't identify as white." And I said, "No, I identify as mixed." And he's like, "Oh, okay, good." So there was that, there was that as well, on both sides. I mean, on the other side, when I'm traveling with all white people, it's everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, you're so exotic," or I want to hear about times that people were mean to you so I can absolve myself. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
oh my gosh, that's so rude that someone would say that. That's so racist. I would never say that. So, you know, I feel like it's you kind of need to code switch as well, right? I feel like, especially being as we are mixed as well, you kind of have to change even the way you speak.
Yes.
Depending on who you're with.
I just want to add one small anecdote that in terms of the American experience, I've participated in a sober Black girls club that is founded out of the States. And one of the meetings I attended was right after Roe v. Wade was overturned. And I had never, so one, it was so empowering to be in a space with all Black women because that had never happened to me before in my life. But I never expected such hostility against white people. And so being half was so shocking. And so I feel like if anyone in the room is shocked by hearing that, like, I was just surprised that they were so mad, but like I understood why, but I just didn't expect it. So I understand where you're coming from.
It's tough.
And I was just curious about where in the States the person was from that was making those comments.
He was from Pittsburgh, I want to say, but he said, you know, we talked, he's like, I don't have any white friends. I do not know any white people. Like, I've worked with, but I don't have any white friends.
I didn't have Black friends till I moved here. Sorry. It's true.
No. Well, you know, and it is such an interesting experience because we do toggle between, you know, two worlds. I find, although we were saying earlier, there are so many mixed kids now. And when I grew up, there was like Malcolm Gladwell. And someone's going to say, I didn't know he was mixed. Exactly. So, I mean, I feel like there was no one to look up to, no one to guide me as to, you know, how to manage this, because you do get it from both sides.
And it's not a question, but like people who live in Toronto or grew up in Toronto may not think about this often, but while we are one of the most diverse cities in the world, when people like me and you were growing up, there really weren't any Black-white kids. So it was a completely different, unique experience, and the racism was different, and it came from both sides. So it was really interesting.
And I think like the African American experience is different than the Caribbean experience. So, you know, my family's Jamaican, and so it's a little bit different than it is in the States. It's, you know, it's a cultural thing as well, right? So you also have those cultural differences.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to ask in terms of platforms and the different engagement that you've had coming off of this entire conversation. I'm curious, is there a specific platform or medium that you've used, especially considering you were talking about I think your Instagram is aesthetically pleasing, by the way. But anyway.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
We weren't sure what you meant there.
Is there a place where you find a richer audience or a more engaged audience or a place that you feel your work resonates more?
That is a fantastic question because I've been wondering the same thing.
Valid.
I write these stories and, you know, I get to place them in some amazing places, in some amazing publications, and I have, you know, some amazing editors. But then maybe you get a white editor who doesn't understand a Black story, and then it gets changed, and then things. And so I think, was this story still as impactful? And who read it? I think that TV has really been helpful in just getting my name out there, so then people can come to my Instagram, and then I can continue to tell those stories from that space where I have a little bit more control. It's tough, you know, as we said, with broadcasts or publications changing so much, that it's very much pay to play, right? The editorial stories are not as interesting because no one's making any money on it. You know, I was on did a City Line cruise at the end of last year. We covered a new cruise, and there was a team from Washington, and I said, I pitched you guys a while ago. And he goes, oh, really? Oh. And then he goes, listen, I'm going to be honest. We don't do anything that's not paid anymore. We don't do any travel that is editorial anymore. No one does it or has room for it.
Yeah, there's organization. I won't name drop, but I write for organizations here that if you want anything promoted, you need to be paying for it like it's an advertisement, right? You can't just expect people to show up, even if it's community centered. I'm curious to that point, though. I just want to tack on another question because what I think that even you and I have dealt with is this question around are we making our content for Black people, even though BlackLantic is in the name, or is it for white people to understand the Black experience?
Oh, geez.
And I know the work that you do, like it's while you mentioned, having, caring about the Black community, the Indigenous community, and maybe being centered that way. I see your content as something that any person could look at and be like, I want to take that trip. I want to be in this place. And it could be for someone who wants to learn about Black culture. So do you ever make something and wonder this, like, or feel a certain way about that or introspective about that at all?
Yeah. So I wrote a lot the past few years about the South in Alabama. I've written a lot about there because I found so much Black joy in Birmingham that I was not expecting to find, and it really changed my life. And I am forever grateful for the city of Birmingham, Alabama.
You heard it here first, y'all.
Alabama. And so I've spent a lot of time in the South telling Black stories because we are discovering so much more about a lot of ships carrying enslaved Africans that went down on the coast and on plantations and things like that. And I had a friend come over from England, and she was planning a road trip through the South. And I thought, oh, well, this is amazing. This is what I've been writing about. You can learn about this, and you can learn about this. And she had zero thoughts of going to any Black-focused sites or pieces of history, which blew my mind because I thought, this is what I write about, and this is what I am trying. This is the story that I'm trying to tell. And how can you go to the South and not acknowledge all of the Black history here? Like, how can you even think of? And I remember saying that, to my husband. I'm like, what am I doing? For me, it was this point. I'm writing all of these stories, and I'm trying to educate. Because I feel like there is so much to be learned that we don't know, that we take for granted. And for myself as well, in, my own self-discovery in my Blackness, I have learned so much. And I feel like a completely different person than when I started, this focus. And I don't understand how someone... Or I guess it felt like all of my work was just landing on deaf ears, that no one was actually taking this and thinking, oh my gosh, I want to go learn about this. So where's my passion going? Who am I writing for? So I still struggle with that. I still struggle with figuring out who is the audience. Maybe it's people like me. Maybe it's people who are, didn't grow up, who grew up biracial or mixed race and trying to figure out who they are. And maybe this is the story that they need. And that's what I just tell myself. I have to say, maybe if one person read this, if one person read it and thought, oh my goodness, this resonates with me and gives me so much strength and joy, then I guess that's what I've done. And selfishly, a lot of it is like my own self-discovery. And, I'm able to kind of guide my writing on my own understanding of myself and my Blackness and how that brings me joy.
We've often said on the podcast many times that one of our favorite parts about doing this is the things that we learn every week by talking to people. I'm glad that you came to that conclusion, and I do kind of get that you're not always as interested in seeing the cultural and heritage and historical things of the place that you're from, but more sort of places that you visit. I know I've done more tourism in Toronto since I moved away than when I grew up here. I'm going to switch it a little bit
Okay.
to a parenting topic. I'm a parent, you're a parent, and and for the parents in the room. Oh, actually, before I say that, I want to say that whether you're reaching one person or when it comes to podcasting, whether you have 1 million views or 30 views on an episode you do, if you could get 40, 50 people to sit in a room and listen to you speak for an hour and they go away with one thought or something insight, then I would say that that's worth it. But as a parent of 3, how do you find the time to juggle traveling and parenting and time for yourself? And also, do you have any tips for parents and families? And I know they could just go to your pages to find this out, but since
Oh my
since people are
goodness.
here.
Balance is a lie. We cannot have it all at once.
Okay.
There'll be times when I'm killing it as a mom, like I'm baking stuff and I'm there at all. I know I don't ever bake, but I'm thinking about baking stuff. I have like great ideas to do with my kids. I'm picking them up. Like I'm there for every bed. I am momming it.
Yeah.
And then I go to Botswana for 12 days and leave my children. And they say to me, I was telling you earlier, my 2 older sons said, "Mommy, I wish you weren't a travel journalist. I wish you were just a mummy." And I was like, and it's tough because I see so many parents who give up so much of themselves to be a parent. And I think, traveling and focusing on what I would like to do or what I would like to do next is going to help my kids in the long run. They're going to see that, mommy can travel. It's going to, they're going to see I am the woman in their life that they are going to look to, how to have a relationship, how to treat women, what women are capable of. And so, I have a very big responsibility as that woman in their life. And I think that showing that I am, someone who is, passionate and empowered is going to help them as well. And they also get to go on nice trips. So like they got to go to Fiji. So
can you be my mom?
I am not currently accepting any more children.
What about self-sufficient ones?
Oh, thanks.
Excellent.
So I think it's hard. It's a very hard balance. And I think you just have to, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out.
That's okay. That's okay.
Before, if there's a couple travel tips for families, that'd be great. But what I said to you when you said that was that a lot of parents work 9 to 5s, Monday to Friday. They wake up with their kids in the morning. They get home at 7 p.m. and maybe an hour or 2 before bed. And it's not so different, right? You're away for 12 days, but then you're just there.
I'm there.
All the time afterwards.
All the time.
And, moms deserve to have lives too.
Yes.
I agree. The only other thing that I wanted to say about that, and now my thought has escaped me, and this is live. But I guess what I find interesting about that, or what I'd be curious about, is do you ever experience any online hate from moms who are judging the momming that you're doing, or are you so not public about it enough for people to be like, how do you do it all?
I wouldn't say hate.
Okay.
Oh, I'm back. I do get some judgy comments, not online, but also in person. Like, oh my gosh, your husband I can't believe you leave him for so long. What does he do? And I'm like,
take care of the humans you made.
They're his kids too.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I feel like I need to explain, one of our parents moves in and, our friends are a big part and we have a babysitter and I don't leave him on his own. Look, I'm explaining right now.
I thought you were going to say you feel the need to slap that person in the face and tell them to mind their business.
And you know what? And I would really, really like to, but I find that I need to explain, and I feel like that is my own guilt. Mm-hmm. That is my own guilt that I'm working through. I think my therapist said to me, and she's like, what if your husband traveled that much? I'm like, well, that'd be fine because, oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see what
double
you did
standard.
there. Total double standard. But you know what? I I get it, and I over-explain, and it's my own guilt. I don't know what to do. That's why I'm paying a therapist. So hopefully we'll figure it out. Come back next year, and I might have an answer for you.
But that's interesting. Balance is a lie, because we're all striving for that work-life balance. And
my friend once forgot to pick up her kid at all. Like, she's like the VP of like a wealth management fund. She is we are all doing it. Yeah. I remember my parents forgot me multiple times.
Yeah, I know I haven't been out at the bus stop at the right time, with a few minutes late, and a kid like knocks on the door.
No, I was at school at 8 p.m. Yeah.
There is also the
I'll bring that up in therapy too.
There is also the opposite, and I won't go into my life story for the sake of time, but there is also the opposite of the like overbearing parent that doesn't have a life for themselves, and it also becomes a detriment that leads to the mental health issues of everyone else. So I am often like, as the child of a single mom, very proud when moms do have lives, and commend people like you and Sasha Exeter and amazing Black women in this community who I'm like, go live your life, because like you said, then kids can see that that's possible instead of thinking you need to be home all the time and it's just so stressful. Pivoting back to your work, I'm very curious, especially from the lens that you come from, the intersectionalities that you have, what have you learned about humanity through your travels and through your work?
Oh my gosh, the world is such a beautiful place, and I have met the most amazing people who have really changed my life. I'm not a crier, and I'm not going to be one here, especially. But from the people, like, just the most giving, loving people in the world. And while we see the news that is so constant about death and destruction and hate, and a man from Florida who is got some felonies under his belt now. I like telling the stories and discovering the stories about the people who are joyful, who are making change, who are protecting their legacies and building generational wealth, and just discovering that the world is truly a beautiful place. And yes, there is hope, and there is hope, and there is a future, and it can be beautiful. And I think that's really what I've discovered. I just have met some phenomenal people who I'll never forget, and I feel like I am very lucky that to have this opportunity. And I think as well, it's not me, it's my role, right? It's not. I think some people go into travel writing or go into whatever and think, it's about me and the story that I am telling. And I think that is completely the wrong way to look at journalism. I think you need to look at it as you are the conduit of this phenomenal cultural experience or emotional experience or whatever that experience, to pass on and to give to other people. And I think it's so, so important to remember that, like, we're just here as the mouthpiece to tell these stories. It's not about us,
Amazing.
That's incredible. Yeah. Everyone should travel and experience, which it's not always... It's sometimes easier said than done.
But travel can be anything. Like, travel can be...
a couple hours up north,
but it even could be, walking to a different part of the city that you've never been to. Maybe you head down to, like, Little Jamaica and you walk through there. Or, like, you just learn something. And in learning, I feel like travel provides perspective, and perspective provides empathy. And isn't that what we all need? Like, we all just need a little more empathy in our lives, especially when so many of us are just seeing it through screens, right? Absolutely. It's like, how do we actually create this empathy? And I think that's what I try to do with my kids, right? Like, I try to show them perspective. And and people are like, oh, your kids aren't going to remember this, your kids are going to remember being in Fiji. No, but there's something that has happened that is going to be that is going to change the way that they act in the next month, which is going to change the way to the next month. And overall, it's going to be impactful in their lives, even though they might not know why.
It's foundational change.
Perfect. Nailed it.
Well, we are here at the Soundwave Summit and for podcasting, and we've talked a little bit about how media has been changing over the years.
Yes.
I've got a question for the audience. Do you think it would be neat or cool if Natalie possibly considered starting her own podcast?
A travel podcast?
To share her wisdom and knowledge with the world?
I think you've got enough people here now to start something.
Right?
Would you all follow Natalie's podcast and listen to it if she started one?
Well, thank you.
I feel like
I will hold all of you to that. Each and every one of you.
Please,
I'll sit outside your window with a microphone.
Please sign a piece of paper on your way out to make sure.
Exactly.
I feel like that's the perfect segue to wrap it up, or the first session of many this evening. We're so excited to be here. Thanks again to everyone involved. And Natalie, please plug yourself. If people want to see the cool things you're doing, learn more, where would they go and find your work?
On Instagram, I am _NattyP, but if you just put in Natty P, I think you'll find me.
Absolutely.
And from there you can find my website. I'm on Breakfast Television, and random other TV shows that you may be watching. And you'll be like, hey, wait a second. My work will be on there too. So just scan through a magazine when you pick it up and see if you can find my name.
That's hilarious.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time and coming down here today.
Thank you for having me. Can we get a round of applause for these two? Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Of course, yeah. If anyone enjoyed this, we do a lot more of this weekly with guests. We've been to the Junos. We do a lot more in person now, but you can find us on all streaming platforms and on screens at BlackLantic, LANTIC. I'm Hilary LeBlanc. This is Clinton Davis. And this was, I guess, your episode 1 of the evening.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
guys.
Thank you.
Nailed it.